right. Well, good evening and welcome to Civil War Digital Digest's Christmas live stream for 2021 and our first live stream on our YouTube platform. So, bunch of different things going on this evening. We figured, why not? We'll try it all at once. I'm Will from the Civil War Digital Digest staff, one of the co-founders of this, and I'm with my partner, Andy. Good evening, Andy.
Evening.
So, I see you raise a glass there. Go ahead. Something we've done with these live streams wherever we've been in Civil War Digital Digest, and Andy, you've been one of them, pushing, hey, let's sit back, let's relax, let's enjoy history, and as people over 21 years old, let's raise a cocktail. Where are you at this evening?
I'm actually enjoying a brandy this evening. I figured with the late night chat and Christmas time, it was appropriate for the season. So,
great. Well, I've been, for those of you who are Civil War Digital Digest coffee grinders or patrons of ours, you've seen we've been doing a series over there called The Sample Room. I will give you, oh my goodness, Minimalist Ray. That would be my sister from Europe, Ray Evans. Welcome, Aiden. I see you there too. Hi to both of you. Ray, you're up way too late and we really appreciate it. My drink this evening, the sample room, to say something to you guys, the sample room is going to show up somewhere else in the new year. I can't say where yet, but I'm pretty excited to find another way to share history with you guys. Out of Jerry Thomas's Bartender's Guide or the Bon Vivant's Companion, this is Champagne Punch. I custom made the raspberry syrup for it, and it's fantastic. And the other thing is my wife gives me a pass to be up here doing a live stream with you all because I left her the rest of the punch bowl. So, to that end, tonight we're here to celebrate the holidays. We've got 4 guests who you've heard coming in. You've got a 5th guest who is a surprise for you, and we will start there. Before we do, we've always been big on saying thank you. We're going to call out a lot of organizations tonight. And we've already mentioned the CWDD Coffee Grinders. And they are folks who support us over on Patreon. We're making a push by the end of the year to get to 225 patrons. We're up to 180, so we're making a really great move there. Hi, Rich. I see you there. Ray says she's ill, but she's here just for the two of us. So really wonderful. Folks, check in. Let us know where you're from, too. And for those coffee grinders, it's been a big move in the last 2 months to grow. We want to say welcome and thank you to Cameron Griffith, Josh Kugener, MC, Samuel Faust, Matthew Bray, Brooke Agasta, Aiden. Aiden, I'm not going to butcher your last name, but I see you here in the chat, so thank you very much. Derek Thomas, Charles Hemingway, Black Dog Military Antiques, that's Jim Abels. If you've not seen the episode we recently did called A Blanket Goes Home, you want to check it out. If you're into history, it's a heartwarming story. Daniel Sarenwine, Edward, Alex Robb, Michael Elliott, and Carl Addison joined us yesterday, so thanks to all of you guys. We see people checking in here, really appreciate that. As we go back, let's go ahead. Andy, do you want to just sort of walk us through what we had? I put it in the wrong category there, but if you take a look, we've got 5 Christmas episodes we've done in the past that are worth following in, folks.
Yeah, so we've generally done a Christmas episode every year. I think last year was the first one we didn't do one, but in the previous ones, we've done an episode on Union Soldiers Christmas, which was 10 stories of Union soldiers going all the way back from the evacuation of Fort Moultrie to go over to Fort Sumter, all the way through the war. In season 2 or volume 2, we did decorating and gift giving. The following year, we did 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, which was the Clement Moore poem that predates the Civil War. And the next year, we talked about Moore, Thomas Nast, the artist, and their modern creation together of taking the legends of St. Nicholas and making him into Santa Claus. And then the following year, for Volume 5, we did a reading of The Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens' classic tale of Christmas redemption.
Great. And so, folks, it's all in a playlist called Civil War. There's different ways to experience. I can tell you right now, I have 2 bridges I want to cross in the coming years in the digest. Like we did the Union Soldiers' Accounts of Christmas, I want to do a Confederate companion to that and look at the Confederate experience in the ranks through Christmas across the years. Also, I own an original copy of the 1865 American Agriculturalist. Actually, I have 63 and 65. In 1865, they have a Christmas pudding recipe in there. I really want to do that. So, with that, that's where we are. We're going to go forward. Let's welcome our first guest. This is our surprise guest. Before we do, Elizabeth Crabb, Jim Scheidel, John Norkus, Tyler. Hey, guys, all welcome. Thanks for checking in. Glad you're with us. I'm going to first, the surprise guest today, let's welcome the buddy of mine who helped start this all. And on screen with us now from History Acres, about a half an hour north of me in the Capec, Michigan area. Welcome, Jeremy. Welcome back.
Yeah, glad to be here. Good to see Will. Good to see Andy. Andy, we were supposed to get together last month. We didn't do that, so we got to figure that out.
Yes, it's
time always flies, doesn't it?
Oh God, I know. Yeah.
So. Well, Jeremy, when we start these things, first question: what are you drinking?
Yeah, pretty simple. I got an old fashioned, but it's made with Copper Queen whiskey, which is Iron Fish Distillery in Michigan brought back a blended whiskey that was available in the Copper Country of Michigan in 1914, and it's a fundraiser for a historic theater. So part of the proceeds go to that theater to keep it operating.
Cool. Well, another thing we want to ask this evening, Jeremy, Christmas traditions in your family that you want to share? Is there a Christmas tradition around or one that you guys have developed to the farm?
Yeah, I think a new one. Let's see, this is our fourth Christmas here. So for the last three, the first one we moved in right before, so we didn't do much. But we've started putting up a Victorian Christmas tree each year, decorating it with appropriate ornaments and candles and all of that. It changes and evolves each year depending on our time and what ornaments and different things that we have available on the trees that we're able to get our hands on. So we enjoy that. And given it's a Victorian farmhouse, it just seemed appropriate to be able to add a little bit of that decoration.
And that tree you're seeing, gang, is from Jeremy and Felicia's front room there, a photo he sent to us earlier today. So tell us, what else is going on the farm you want to talk to us about? I know we've been with you once already as History Acres when we introduced where you and Felicia have been with whitewashing, and there's other things we're talking about.
Yeah, so I guess with the whitewashing follow-up, because last time we saw, I guess, an update with what we had going on here, we were putting together that chicken house. So we have about 30 chickens that live in it. It fluctuates because they do end up in our freezer at certain points too. We do do that. So we have primarily Dominique chickens, so the oldest breed in North America, and then Black Javas, which we only have 4 of those. We need to grow that flock out, but they're the second oldest breed of North America, so it's really our focus. So a lot of the breeds that we know of today, they're kind of the Adam and Eve for the chicken world, at least here in the United States.
Jeremy, did I catch on Facebook earlier this week you guys have actually started doing your turning your pigs into bacon at this point?
Yeah, so that was a big update. The chickens we've been harvesting and going through that and layers. We also raise pigs, so we have American guinea hogs. They're also a pretty old breed. Their history gets a little murky when you get back past the Civil War, but they're a small pig that low input, but they take a while to grow. So we just harvested our first one. It wasn't born here. We brought it here when it was 8 weeks old. And a friend of ours, Brian Egan, who's been on many episodes with the Digest, pulled up and helped us butcher it. So yes, we have pork that was raised here now in our freezer. Actually, we had a shoulder roast today for dinner that came from that harvest.
And you see bacon raised on History Acres, cured on History Acres, and sitting on the counter waiting to be sliced up for breakfast on History Acres in front of you right now, everybody.
Yeah, it's another big update is learning how to dry cure and deal with that pork. We live in a modern world, but we try hard to take clues and cues from history and historical texts. So dry curing the bacon with sugar and salt and some pepper, and then smoking it so it's preserved. It'll last, well, the eternity until it's eaten, really. and actually looking at brine a ham next week and to learn that process. So
Wow.
after the learning, the processing and the butchering, now it's learning how to cure it and preserve it.
Great. What do you think, let me just put you on the spot. What do you think's the single biggest thing you've learned since getting out of the suburbs and into a farm?
Ooh, no, I don't know if I could pick one thing. Nothing ever goes to plan, and it's a lot more work than you think it'll be. Nothing ever goes to plan. There's always something. Animals are unpredictable. They'll do things that you don't realize, or things just don't go the way you think. Actually, we were mucking out some pens a few nights ago, and I didn't leave some gate. I didn't lock some gates. They were just sort of pushed closed. But the pigs are busy eating, so usually they're pretty preoccupied. And one of the sows that has a litter, I turned around and just noticed she was gone. So suddenly, unexpectedly, we're trying to find her, and she had wandered over to where the garage where we keep the feed that's mixed. She knew where the food was. She just couldn't figure out how to get to it, and then it was dark and couldn't find her way back. So Felicia led her back home. So you just never know. You gotta. Actually, another funny story. Again, I share all these stories where I left the gate unlocked. Where I did that with a pen that had 3 feeder pigs in it. In the morning, I kind of threw the chain over it to hold it in place while they were eating, and got distracted, and I never actually latched it. Came out in the afternoon to find 3 pigs hanging out in our driveway. FedEx had delivered that day, and I'd love to know if a pig showed up while FedEx was there delivering those packages, but I'll never know or get to see their face on that one.
Fantastic. Well, I must say, Jeremy, it's really great to have you back with us here. It's exciting to be talking with you and Felicia about some future content here on the Digest. I know we've got a number of different things we're noodling in the back of our heads, including some older things that we had previously outlines with, and it'll be fun to work with you guys again as we go forward, and watch what you guys do on History Acres to share it out. Gang, History Acres does not have a YouTube presence yet, but it does have a Facebook presence. Go ahead and follow them over there. When we run into stuff like bacon made on a farm and eaten on a farm, we've already shared it out, and we'll continue to do that. But check them out and watch what's going on their farm as you go forward.
Yeah, a little bit of everything on there. Sometimes something that we've worked on with the house, because the old part of the house that's from the 1870s, we're working on restoring. So there might be pictures of that. There might be cute animal pictures, or hopefully you don't mind, but there could be a picture of a pig hanging from a tree. Usually I'll put those probably in the comments, though.
Yeah, well, we left that off for tonight, but I've got a picture of the sitting area upstairs with the 2 seats and the double doors in the bedroom, because it's just the work you guys have done there to bring that place back is just magnificent. So
thank you.
Well, Jared, we'll say thanks for coming on. We'll let you go for the evening, and excited to spend some time as friends over the next couple of weeks while we're home, but also to build some stuff to help other folks explore and connect with history a little bit more. Thank you so much for this crazy idea, and thank you for what you've done to keep it going. Sneak behind the scenes conversation. We'll have a few of them tonight, folks. Jeremy sees every episode. He is our most trusted content editor, and when he talks, anybody who's editing or working on other things around here shuts up and still pays attention, because his content editing skills are so on point in his storytelling. Really great to have you with us, Jer.
Well, thank you for that, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone, and take care.
Merry Christmas. We'll see you again, Jer. Bye now.
It's great to see you, Jeremy.
Good to see you too.
Well, great. Well, back here, let's move on to our next guest. We've got a few other things to talk about. We want to celebrate a little bit what folks through us have done this year as far as preservation goes. But as we do that, history comes from preservation. History comes from community. History comes from connection. And one of our greatest connections in the past couple of years has been a new strategic partnership we have with an organization called Alfam. And I'm going to bring a board member and the fellow who just kept pushing until the strategic partner happened on at this point. Let's welcome Jim Lauderdale. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Will, how you doing? Good to see you tonight.
Evening. Thanks for spending time with us. I see it's dark there, even over on your side of the country. Why don't you tell us where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm coming to you all from Fort Nisqually Living History Museum in Tacoma, Washington tonight.
Okay, and what do you guys do there?
So Fort Nisqually is obviously a living history museum that portrays an 1850s Hudson's Bay Company post. It was established by the Hudson's Bay Company in the 1830s. We portray the 1850s because of some of the historic structures that we have here at the site.
Great. We have people chiming in as Jim fans. Aiden's here saying Jim. AJ's yelling Jim in the comments. And we say hello also to Scott, to William, and to Laura, who've checked in. Scott, Southeast Michigan, interest in the 7th Michigan Volunteer Infantry. Go to our website, send us a message on the contact page, and we can help get you in touch with folks, either whether you're interested in history or living history. We can point you in the right direction there. So, well, Jim, I said before we started the conversation this evening, when it was all of us who are going to be on tonight together, I said you win the award for the best dressed. Why don't you tell us what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our Christmas traditions here at Fort Nisqually is a sausage making that we've been doing for the last several years. Some friends and I get together here at the museum during the month of December, and we have a family recipe for Polish sausage. Consists of your ground pork, as well as garlic powder, onion powder, salt and pepper. Pretty basic, but then we mix everything together by hand. We have a reproduction sausage stuffer that the sausage goes into, natural casing. And today we made 30 pounds of Polish sausage, which literally took all day long. It's quite the process to stuff it by hand. Once it's stuffed, then we use the smokehouse that's here at Fort Nisqually, hang up the sausage and smoke it overnight. So it smokes for about 7 hours.
Jim, okay, I'm glad you answered my question, because as a good Polak, there's always the discussion in my family between fresh sausage and smoked kielbasa. And my wife and I definitely come down the smoked kielbasa side, but I was going to ask what you guys did with it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great. Usually we'll have a little bit left over, and we'll patty it out and put it into a skillet and throw it on to the stove and the skillet and fry it up at the end of the day. And that's very good, but nothing beats the smoked sausage for sure.
And how long will you smoke it for?
So it usually depends on, how well the smokehouse is working. If we've got a good rolling smoke, it's a cold smoke. But if we've got a good rolling smoke, 7 hours will do. Last year, as happens here in the Pacific Northwest, it was raining and storming last year when we made it. So I actually had to smoke the sausage for another 24 hours to get enough smoke. The wind plays a part in how the smokehouse operates. So anywhere from 7 to 24 hours usually will work.
Well, Jim, it's interesting you talk about this as a tradition for you guys. This is actually something that we do with my wife's family every year. Her family is Italian, and we have her great-grandmother's Italian sausage recipe. So we end up making sausage for the whole extended family. We end up doing about 150 pounds of sausage that we all do with hand. It's all mixed by hand on the table. There's usually some wine consumed while making it, and we end up hand stuffing it in there. So I can very much appreciate, because we do it as, obviously it's on modern grinders and stuff, but it's a really cool experience, I think, to get to really get into the food prep like that. And it's just funny for me, because that's just always been part of our family tradition there. So.
Well, and I must say, as I look to the comments, Dora Rodriguez, who's one of our coffee grinders here in Michigan, says, "Love the hat, Jim." Young Days 98's checking in. Hi 61, thank you very much, reminding everybody, don't forget to hit the like button. Appreciate that. Aiden says, damn, that looks good. Josh Wilson says, hello, guys. And AJ said, sad that I missed it. Need to get up that way one day. So, I've been showing the photos you sent over, Jim, so I think people are really interested in seeing what's going on there.
Excellent. Thank you, Will.
And so, well, let's, Andy's got one thing to feed your way, Jim, and then we'll move into talking about Alfam.
Well, Jim, I was going to ask, what are you having this evening?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you asked. Here at Fort Nisqually, we have an heirloom apple orchard that we harvest every year, and several volunteers get together for a harvest home event where we grind and press our apples, take the juice, and then ferment for making hard cider. And so tonight, I'm enjoying a cup of apple cider. It's actually a Cider. So we mix honey with the cider when we ferment, and it jacks up the ABV, the tasty beverage, and it's something that we've been enjoying for several years now. So yeah, I'm having an apple cider tonight.
Does putting the extra sugar help just create more alcohol then when it ferments?
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you think of making mead, this is an apple mead. That's exactly what it is. So when we start out with just the apple juice itself, we could have a starting gravity of what would be 7% alcohol. But once we add the honey to it, it may jack it up to anywhere from 11 to 14%.
Oh, wow. That's very impressive.
You had me at apple mead, Jim. So, well, let's give you a couple of minutes, Jim. Let's have you switch hats, but leave that really cool historic one on. Let's switch away from Nisqually and let's go to Alfam. It's a wild acronym. Every time I've had somebody from Alfam near me, I've gone ahead and done the softball thing and not done the introduction and said, hey, why don't you introduce the organization because you're going to be better at it. Last time it was Deb Reed. This time it's your turn. Talk to us about what Alfam is and how it helps history.
Absolutely. So first of all, let me explain an acronym. Alfam stands for the Association of Living History Farm and Agricultural Museum. And Alfam is an organization of people that brings history to life. We have members in the United States, all across the United States, as well as the lower 48, as well as Alaska and Hawaii. But we are an international organization. We have members in Iceland, Scotland, England, France, Germany. So we're truly an international organization. And Alfam serves those in the living history, farm, and agricultural museums, and has done so since 1970. So actually 2020 was the 50th anniversary of Alfam. It's a great networking organization where people come together and share resources to help one another share living history techniques and that sort of thing. And truly, I have learned more from the people that I've been associated with in Alfam than I ever would have believed. So it's an excellent organization. I'm really excited to tell you about the conference that's happening next year. So Fort Nisqually will be the host organization in 2022 for the Alfam International Conference that will occur here in Tacoma, Washington. This is the first in-person conference that the association has had since the pandemic began. So we are very excited to be able to get back together. We like to say that Alfam is a big family, so we consider ourselves part of the Al family. And it's been a long time since we've seen one another, since we've shared. It's just not the same. I'm sure you can appreciate it's not the same getting together virtually as it is in person. And the amount of experience and knowledge that is shared within the association is truly phenomenal.
Cool. Well, tell me, who is Alfam for? You've mentioned museum professionals. You and I were talking about this yesterday. How wide of a net do you cast, and who should think about it?
Absolutely. So, living history is in the name. So, anyone who is interested in living history, you don't just have to be a museum professional to be a member of Alfam. Actually, we have a number of enthusiasts and hobbyists that are involved in living history that join the organization to learn from, what everybody has to share. So you don't have to be a museum professional to join Alfam. It's open. Membership is open to everybody. And I'll put in a plug. If you want to learn more about the organization, go to alfam.org and check it out. We have skills and knowledge databases available for people to learn by. We do things called skill clips, which are short videos where you can go and check out a video. And then the last couple of years, as Will mentioned, we've had the skills, the strategic partnership with Civil War Digital Digest and Look Around You Ventures for the videos where we can highlight some of the organizations that are part of Alfam and the things that they do at their sites. So it's a great organization. It's for anybody, everybody. You can be, whether you're from the United States or international. If you're interested in living history, farm, or agricultural aspects, it's for you.
Great. And gang, the other that we work under, Look Around You Ventures, holds both Civil War Digital Digest and our Revolutionary War series, Revolutionary Gazette. If you're here and don't know about that, just search around on YouTube after the live stream is done for Revolutionary Gazette. So, well, Jim, it's been a lot of fun to be with, and I'm thrilled that you'd come on to be with us. You and I have had a lot of conversations over the years, and you've really been a champion that Alfam and the Digest and now the Gazette should work together, and it's been just rich from our side. Your folks bring the years of skills. We do research. We do a certain level of things. We do a certain amount of things. Others of your folks are specialists in other things, and it's great to be able to capture that and our brand of it. The skills clips, folks, when you go see them, sometimes it may be blue jeans and t-shirts because it's about the specific skill. What we're doing in the partnership is taking the specific skill and wrapping it in the era that you're in to make it a more full look at the time period and combining the two together. So it's been a lot of fun to do that together, Jim.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, I really appreciate it and look forward to the partnership continuing, and just want to wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
Good.
And
Yep, and before you go, Jim, I got a couple of things to share with you here. John Connors, who will be on the episode later, mentions in the comments, you win for best drink tonight. So, and William Gwaltney, if I'm not too badly butchering the last name, hello to Fort Nisqually from a longtime employee and volunteer at Bent's Old Fort on the Santa Fe Trail. So, and you've already caught one. Our buddy Aiden said, I didn't realize Alfam membership wasn't exclusive to museum professionals. So I think we've helped get a little more information out there tonight. So, Jim, we'll say thanks for your time. I know you have family to get home to. Careful, make sure the cider's out of the system before you go see the family. So,
absolutely.
As we say in the sample room, keep your 19th century libation away from your 21st century locomotion and have a wonderful evening. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, thank you.
Geez, Andy, it's just amazing how many people help us make the digest something richer and how we can work together and share those connections to history. I know it, I see it, I do it every day, and I think this is a great chance to just step back and take a look at it. So I'm thrilled.
Well, as am I. I mean, for everyone to kind of peek behind the curtain, when Will and I talked about what our Christmas episode was going to be this year, they've always either been historical or dramatic, readings of the poems or Christmas Carol or history behind them. This year when Will and I were talking, we thought, what would be really good is to really, we've kind of made as I've taken over the newsletter this year, one of the things that we've really emphasized is partnerships and that this is a collaborative effort. And we thought it'd be a good idea for Christmas this year to really talk about the people we work with, the groups we work with, Jim, with with Alfam, we come across so many different locations between the two channels that we've gotten to work with Alfam groups. There's such a wide network that's been such a great partnership. Obviously having Jeremy on as one of the founding member here on Digital Digest and someone who still is, a good friend to both Will and I and still connected to the channel. And Steve Fan with Camp Nelson, Doug Dahman with the Civil War Museum in Kenosha coming up, and John Connors, who's been on the channel in many different ways over the years. This is a collaborative effort. This is not something that, the two of us do just by ourselves. There's so many people behind the screen, whether it's, Sam, who's usually our sound editor, or Patrick or Christian behind the camera with you. I can think of how many times Chad Johnson or Huck are, Robert Huck are out there helping us. This is just something that it's a group of people. Brian Jankowski's been helping us as a weapons and props person the last couple times we've been out. It just makes when we have that team working together, it really helps our product be better and allows us to tell a more complete story to everyone.
Yep, and with so many talented living historians checking in, we did some stuff this summer shooting extra footage for episodes, which in the film industry is called B-roll. Matter of fact, let me just share an image here of Andy giving some notes to fellas. You'll see some of those names mentioned right here. This will be for an upcoming episode on the 2nd Wisconsin, as well as other things. When we shot that here in Michigan. I'm hoping next year to shoot on the East Coast and in Illinois both. It does a couple of things for us. It gets more people involved in this. It allows us to say thanks to more folks, and it gets more faces so that as we have content history, how many people have seen that documentary and go, hey, wait a second, that guy shot himself? The more people we work with, the more faces we have, the better we tell the story. So, well, amidst all of this, one of the things we've been able to do is celebrate the National Park Service, and we're starting to do that more and more. And we want to turn to a friend of ours who we got to meet one of the newest national parks going with this year when our cinematographer Christian and I hauled out of Chicago on a Saturday morning where he and I are on a TV show together. And let me welcome who we went down to see, our friend Ranger Steve Fan, now full-time at Camp Nelson National Monument.
How's it going, fellas? Good to see you again. It was good to chat with you yesterday, Will, and I'm glad to see Andy as well. Really cool to be a part of this event. I know you guys have been working hard, and the diversity of the things that you guys do is absolutely incredible, and I know you're constantly busy. But to be able to connect more people to history, the field of history, historic sites, stories is critically important. So honored to be here.
Well, glad to have you, Stephen. You say diversity, you say history, you say connection. Man, talk about the rookie kid in the National Park Service doing all of those things at once. We've done an episode that ran 15 or 16 minutes. Why don't you give us it in a nutshell? What is Camp Nelson and what do you do there?
Well, yeah, I appreciate, again, having us on. Camp Nelson National Monument is one of the newest national park units, as you mentioned there, Will, established in October 2018, and it was a U.S. Army base. I think for a lot of people that are into military terms, especially modern military terms, I call it a forward operating base. Really a major supply depot for the Army of the Ohio to operate into East Tennessee, especially in other parts of the South. So established in late April of 1863, believe it or not, by the order of General Ambrose Burnside, who had just been sent west after his Fredericksburg and Mud March debacle. And he'll create this supply base. We're about 18 miles or so south of Lexington, Kentucky, right in the middle of central Kentucky. And yeah, it becomes this really important supply depot that will fuel this offensive into East Tennessee, which begins in August of 1863 and is successful, by the way. The Army will liberate Knoxville and maintain their presence in East Tennessee for the remainder of the war. And so there's that military operational aspect of it, but there's also the complexities of emancipation, slavery as well. Kentucky's a border state, like Maryland and Delaware and Missouri. So interestingly enough, Kentucky is overwhelmingly pro-union, but they're also overwhelmingly pro-slavery as well. And so one of the most important aspects, the national significance of Camp Nelson, is the African-American experience. And it really starts when the camp was first established. They need to expand the road system in central Kentucky, leading all the way down to Cumberland Gap into Tennessee. But also they needed to defend the camp. Camp Nelson was established on very formidable high ground To the west is the Kentucky River. To the east is Hickman Creek. But there was a weak spot, a northern approach actually. It had to be fortified. So the Army will actually impress enslaved African Americans from central Kentucky to work on the road system and build the fortifications at Camp Nelson. And we still have remnant earthworks all throughout the park there. And so that's kind of the immediate first connection. But by 1864, with war weariness, Lincoln's, re-election up in the air there. A lot of, federal campaigns kind of being extended, prolonged around the country here. They need more troops. And so the Army will start enlisting African-American soldiers at Camp Nelson and parts of Kentucky. Over 23,000 will enlist in the Bluegrass State. Over 10,000 will enlist at Camp Nelson.
Wow.
We have 8 full black regiments that will enlist at Camp Nelson. And all 3 major branches will. We've got 2 cavalry units, 4 infantry, and 2 heavy artillery units. And so when the soldiers come to Camp Nelson, or these men, they self-emancipate by enlisting with the U.S. Army. They're also joined by their families. So wives, children, sisters, mothers, they come to Camp Nelson as well, and they've got no status. They're considered refugees, actually. And, there's some pretty horrific events that happened to the refugees, especially in 1864. Many of them are expelled from camp and end up dying. But you really see the complexities of emancipation kind of be decided on the ground in Kentucky here, okay? And so you see the intersection of kind of military service, military necessity, and enslavement. What does the emancipation really mean to people in a border state, right? And so it's a really, really interesting site, and not a battlefield, but a very, very critical Civil War site that will provide kind of the insight to the complexities of the Civil War, not only then, but also now as well, the memory of the Civil War, right? There was a lot of antipathy and anger towards the Emancipation Proclamation. It had no effect in Kentucky. There were still enslaved people in Kentucky and Delaware until December of 1865, until the passage of the 13th Amendment, right? And Kentucky did not ratify the 13th Amendment until 1976. Okay, so these are the conversations that we're having right now. There was a descendant community of refugees and former African-American soldiers that formed on the grounds here. And, we've been really trying to build and forge these really genuine, respectful relationships with them. And so, as I've talked to you before, well, we're building a brand new national park.
So tell me, Steve,
quite the honor.
Yeah, what does that look like? I mean, we've seen the episode of show where it was, sure. So we sort of see that there's a lot of open space. There's a lot of archaeology to explore, sure. A lot of signage and that. Where are you guys going? Your park superintendent Ernie has a great reputation in the national park. He's come up from Appomattox. You've come out from Defenses of Washington. You guys are putting a team together. What's the goal? What you can share? Where are you guys going?
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you asked me, because when you came down here and we shot that episode, the visitor center wasn't open yet. So there was a park here established by Jessamine County, Kentucky, and we give them a lot of credit because they were the ones that really forged this. Starting in the 90s, by the 2000s, they started establishing a couple buildings, basically, right? And it was called Camp Nelson, Heritage Site, until the Park Service, this was declared as a national monument in 2018. So, there's a museum here. They did a park film. They had established a trail system, interpretive waysides, and things like that. We're just enhancing that. We're building upon kind of the foundation that they set. And so, when we first met, we were still renovating the visitor center. We had just installed the front desk. When I was on detail there, I was hiring staff. That's the reason why we weren't open. And my detail ended in early May. I had to go back to D.C., and we reopened in June, and I wasn't even there. So it was kind of interesting to watch the park reopen from afar. But, we're reopened now 5 days a week, Wednesday through Sunday, 9 to 5. We're starting to do public programming. But I think, as you mentioned, we're doing a lot of bigger projects. We've acquired more land there. We're going to expand the trail system. We're going to do brand new park exhibits inside with the museum, brand new interpretive waysides. and continue to build this relationship with this living history group, the 12th U.S. Colored Heavy Artillery. Obviously, partner with community organizations and things like that. So we just want to flesh this out, right? There's a lot to do here, and we're in it for the long run. As you mentioned, a lot of us, as we do in the Park Service, we travel to different parks as a part of our career, right? So I never thought I'd leave D.C., but hey, here I am in Kentucky, and it's been quite the honor. I've really enjoyed my experience here.
Great. Well, we're going to look forward to checking back in with you, seeing what's up. Gang, the CWDD Coffee Grinders, who I've mentioned a couple of times this evening, we give money away quarterly, and trust me, I have told Steve that something's coming up that they need to do faster than they can get congressional appropriation from that's small, or something they need to get across the finish line. Don't be surprised if Steve reaches out to the Coffee Grinders to be included in consideration for a quarterly donation. So, Steve, before we let you go, we got 2 questions for this evening.
Sure.
I've got one, and Andy's got one for you. My question, do you have any, you're somewhere across the country now on your own. What Christmas tradition or what holiday tradition do you have?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because I was kind of listening to what the other guests were saying, and I actually brought this up to a couple of my friends the other day. So 2 years ago, when I was in D.C., I actually worked on Christmas. I worked at the National Christmas Tree at President's Park, right in front of the White House, and between the White House and the Washington Monument, right? And so, yeah, I've been living in kind of shared housing the past 5 years or so. So one of the things my friends and I did on Christmas was we'd go to Chinatown, right? Because, my family's from Vietnam. We didn't really celebrate Christmas growing up. So, and, in many places, the only place that's are open are Chinese restaurants. And so we go to Chinatown in D.C., and it's kind of funny, right? There's a bunch of Jewish families there, and we're just having these, and everyone just goes crazy, right? And so I'm hoping to do that here on Saturday. I'm not sure if any restaurants will be open around the Lexington area, but that's kind of what I like to do, spend time with friends. And so that's kind of my big tradition. And I hope to see if that can happen in Lexington. But I love the idea of going to Chinatown and seeing a bunch of different people out and enjoying their time. So I guess 2 years ago, it was a long day. I worked all day long. I got off, and I met my friend at Chinatown. I was still in my Park Service uniform. And I looked at him. I'm like, I'm ordering lobster tonight. So I ordered a full lobster. So it was great, But yeah, I think, Andy, are you going to ask me what I'm drinking tonight?
I was going to, but I know that, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I had to be on my best behavior because I would be drinking some sort of bourbon. I am in bourbon country, right? And
I was gonna say you're in the place for it if you like bourbon.
When we shot down there, Christian and I might have come back with a couple of bottles. Each.
And so it's a lifestyle here, right? Everyone loves bourbon. They're really into it here, and I'm just learning myself, and I really like bourbon. But and I'll share a quick story. I had the former park archaeologist, by the way, because you said there was a lot of archaeology that was done at Camp Nelson because it's an archaeological site. During the war, it was well over 4,000 acres, 300 wooden buildings. Everything was taken down in 1866. So it went up quick and it went down really quick. So everything is in the ground. And the former historian archaeologist for the county did a lot of excavations here. And he found everything from sardine cans that came from France, oysters that came from like Maryland, right? So you see this trade network that still occurred, obviously, in the midst of the Civil War, right? There was a photography studio here, so he found like glass and tin types and stuff like that, right? Just absolutely incredible stuff. But anyways, him and his wife came over the other night. She's also an archaeologist. And they brought over 4 bottles of bourbon. Okay, so I was like, oh my gosh! And so like, yeah, we want to do a tasting. We want to do a tasting. So yeah, I'm getting quite acclimated. I'm hoping to do all the bourbon trail tours this next year. Right, a lot of things have been closed, but hopefully some things open up, and I'll be taking advantage of that as well.
So, gang, if you want to go to Kentucky and see Ranger Steve Fan, you can also see the Battle of Richmond site. And just make sure you're careful when you're down there because the bourbon trail's there as well. There's a lot of things to see in Kentucky. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Always.
Gang, go see him down there. What a wonderful evening. Happy holidays to you, Steve. We'll see you soon.
Well, I'd say, we have a Facebook page, Instagram page. Just look up Camp Nelson National Monument. Look for the NPS Arrowhead, and love for you to kind of follow us as we continue to develop this new national park. Andy, always good to see you. Will, you're a great inspired historian, my friend, and I appreciate all you do. And take care of yourselves, guys. I'll see you soon, okay?
See you soon.
It's great to see you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yep, take care, guys.
Well, gang, wow, what a bucket of energy and what a wonderful fellow to share a meal with. And I've never met a bigger foodie than you get with Steve. You want to have a meal with somebody fantastic, let him pick, because that boy is a complete foodie.
You know, Will, for me, my favorite area of the Civil War is the First Corps of the Army of the Potomac. And, you know, Steve's after my heart because Steve is probably the biggest General Reynolds fan that I have ever talked to in my life. And I love that, you know.
Well, let's do some more stuff with him coming up. We got 2 guests left, one by video and one live with us this evening, and I've given him a warning, and give me a nod if you can hear me over there on the other channel of Skype. You see we're ready to come in, so we're gonna come in, and before we go to the video, I want to bring our final guest of the evening to be with us for the rest of the night. So we're going to welcome John Connors to be with us. Good evening, John. And he's jumping up to hit the unmute because he's been sitting with us for 45 minutes. Hey, John.
Hey, good evening.
So
I feel Steve has got so much energy. I feel like he's a tough act to follow.
Well, it's been fun sitting watching you grin in the corner as different people have said different things and watching you chime in. So thanks for hanging out with us. John has been one of our biggest cheerleaders. He was one of our earlier coffee grinders and still is a coffee grinder and is game to try just about anything and brings ideas to the table with us. You've seen John when we've done stuff on music. John is a member of the 73rd OVI Brass Band, the 2nd Brigade Brass Band. He sits in with the Federal City Brass Band. Pretty much John is the caretaker of an original horn, and it's a horn for hire. If you've got a Civil War brass band, you probably see John sometimes around here, and it's been a lot of fun to learn music with you. John has been just a great relationship there.
Yeah, so far it's been wonderful. I'm looking forward to what more comes of it.
Yeah, so by trade, John is a bandsman in the Ohio National Guard, right? And
yep,
we share a horn. We're both trombone players primarily. Only John does it professionally, and I do it every other weekend or so because my daughter's now playing, and I'm playing horn with her. So John wanted to bring you in, not leave you too far out. Before we're going to detour and go to one more guest before we tell the story you have to tell, or let you tell the story you have. But let's start since you're with us. Traditions. I know you're establishing a new house there. What do you have in Christmas traditions that are big for you?
Well, it's coincidental that you just mentioned my musical background because as a brass player, you know, many of us find work on the side or we make our full-time living with music, but the trombone specifically has a long history with performing in the Catholic Church and then in other church traditions too. In fact, if anyone of your viewers is a viewer of the Early American Brass Band podcast, they had an episode today about the praise band tradition coming out of black churches, which today kind of manifest themselves in these marching trombone ensembles that have drums and sousaphones. And they had one of their guests that has written doctoral research on that today. It was really fantastic. But anyway, I find myself often playing at the high holidays, Christmas and Easter, and so I get to play again Christmas Eve up in Cleveland, and then I've performed for the past, well, pretty much as long as I can remember playing the trombone with my dad ringing the bell at the Salvation Army Red Kettle Drive. He really likes to do that on Christmas Eve, which is their last day of doing that for the year. So I'll be going up there and playing with some other friends that I was able to strong arm into playing with me, and we'll play some Christmas carols while shoppers get to reach into their pockets for some spare change and put it toward a good cause. So looking forward to both of those. And other than that, I mean, I spend time with my family, and that'll be good again this year.
Fantastic.
Well, John, to ask the question of the night, what is your libation of choice this evening?
Well, you'll get a kick out of this because I just finished. This is the last pour from a Rémy Martin 1738 cognac that I bought at the Class 6 shop at the Nex at Little Creek. I'm sure you're familiar with Little Creek.
I have spent my time at Naval Station Little Creek. Yes.
Yeah, so I bought that when I was there in 2014 for the advanced leader course. As Will mentioned, I'm with the Ohio Army National Guard, and the Army School of Music is kind of a it is housed in the Navy School of Music. So it's a three service Navy, Marine Corps, and Army musicians have their specialty school there, and it's based at Little Creek. So I went there after basic training, and then in 2014 I went there for the what is essentially the first NCO school, and you learn a few more skills that they expect of staff sergeants in the Army band program. So it was kind of 2 weeks of drum major training, ceremonial conducting, and that sort of thing. But at one point I found myself over at the Class 6 shop, and so this is the last pour of that, and it's good. Like you said, Brandy is a good time. Christmas is a good time of year for that.
Yeah, Jim Scheidel just chimed in at the Class 6. Nice. So you have supporters in the chat. Well,
for anyone who doesn't understand what that is, it's just tax-free military shopping. So it's a good place to get a couple bucks off your fancy booze.
If I wasn't having brandy tonight, I would be drinking I have a bottle of Johnny Walker Gold Label that I bought the last time. For those of you who don't know, I'm still a reservist in the Navy. I'm a flight instructor. And when I go down to Florida, I oftentimes will find myself buying a bottle or two at the same thing. It's a good price, and,
Good. Well, fellas, let's talk about giving money to a good thing here. John, we'll ask you just to hang with us on air if you would. John, sure. As I said, is one of the CWDD coffee grinders. Talking about what's happened this year, because it's going to allow us to segue. We give money away quarterly. We save, the coffee grinders give money to help support the digest. We immediately set 15% of that aside for preservation. Quarterly, we hold a conversation amongst the coffee grinders. Everybody who wants to brings up a suggestion. The staff here picks our favorite 3, and we put it out to a vote to the coffee grinders. Their vote wins. This January, we gave about $585 to preservation at Fisher's Hill through the Shenandoah Valley Battlefield Foundation. In April, we gave $675 for conservation of the Carolyn Quarles letters at the Kenosha Civil War Museum. That's something near and dear to my heart and to Andy's. We volunteer at Historic Fort Wayne, Detroit, and Carolyn Quarles took her final jump to freedom, as you'll hear in a little bit, within about a half a mile of Fort Wayne when it was being built in the 1840s, because it was a quiet area. So her story connects, and her ancestor, Kim Simmons, is still very active in history, in Underground Railroad history in the Detroit area, and as a friend of mine, I've been able to interview her, so to help her ancestors' letters get conserved was pretty cool. In September, we gave $740 to the Battery Height land acquisition. This is where the VMI Cadet Artillery Section was at Newmarket. And then in October, we gave over $700 to a piece of property in the morning of Cedar Creek. We don't know where the fourth quarter vote's going because we haven't taken it yet. But in January, the money from the fourth quarter of this year will go out, and we'll keep you posted where that is. As you see the number of coffee grinders rise, you see each quarter we're able to give more and more and more. So that's pretty exciting. Not represented here, we did the short film Hold My Horse a couple of years ago. Every time another copy of that sells, whether through our website or whether through the Vimeo link, 30% of the money we make goes, excuse me, that is split half and half between the Historic Fort Wayne Coalition, where Richardson started service in the Civil War, and the Safe Historic Antietam Foundation, where he was mortally wounded and his service ends. So before we go to what John has to tell us this evening, we're going to detour and go for a quick video. Those letters from Carolyn Quarles are a significant piece of history, and they're one of the biggest pieces of the Kenosha Civil War Museum. We'll ask both of you gentlemen to please hit mute. Mine will mute automatically. We have season's greetings coming to you from the Kenosha Civil War Museum. So let me go ahead and share this with you. Enjoy Doug Dahman, who couldn't be with us tonight.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. My name is Doug Dahman. I'm the educational coordinator here at the Civil War Museum in Kenosha, Wisconsin. With me today is the collections curator of the Civil War Museum and the Kenosha Public Museums, Gina Radant. Will and Andy asked us to appear today as part of their Christmas celebration. We just want to wish everyone out there happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and specifically to thank the Civil War Digital Digest's coffee grinders. They provided tremendous support to our museum this year in the form of a conservation grant that we're going to talk about here in a minute that allowed us to do conservation work on what Gina and I think are probably some of the three most important documents that we have in our entire collection. The documents themselves revolve around a woman named Carolyn Quarles. Carolyn Quarles was enslaved in St. Louis, and at the age of 16 in 1842, Carolyn liberated herself by traveling from St. Louis to Milwaukee via a steamboat up the Mississippi River to Alton, Illinois, and then a stagecoach all the way to Milwaukee. And you have to remember, in 1842, that's before Wisconsin is even a state. So she's up here in Wisconsin territory. At the time, Carolyn realized it was not safe for her to stay in Milwaukee, that she had to travel to Canada for her ultimate freedom. She was assisted on her journey to Canada by a man by the name of Lyman Goodnow. He was from Waukesha, Wisconsin. Waukesha is presently a western suburb of Milwaukee. Lyman and Carolyn made the journey from Waukesha, Wisconsin to Sandwich, Ontario over the course of several months. And for those of us today, we're thinking about, well, I need to get to Milwaukee and I got to go to Canada. I think intuitively think our initial direction of travel would be north. But Lyman and Carolyn went south, following pretty much the path of Interstate 94, down through Wisconsin, around Chicago, up through Northwest Indiana, across Michigan to Detroit, where Lyman took Carolyn over the river to Sandwich, Ontario. Now, where the letters come into the story, 38 years after that journey, Lyman wrote Carolyn a letter asking specifically some pointed questions about what she remembered about the journey and what her life had been like since they'd last seen each other. Carolyn not only wrote one letter back to Lyman, but she wrote two. And her husband, who had also escaped from bondage in Kentucky and made his way to Ontario, also wrote a letter back to Lyman. Those letters found their way to our museum early in its existence, and we knew that it was a great opportunity in talking to Will and Andy when we were talking about potential projects that the Civil War Digital Digest, the coffee grinders, could support. We knew the conservation of these letters could be integral to that process. And so Gina, can you tell us exactly and specifically what was done? How was the money used? What sort of conservation work was done on the letters?
Right, thank you, Doug. And thank you again to the coffee grinders for the support of the grant. We were able to work with a paper conservator from Chicago who did a series of treatments on the letters. The letters were first gently cleaned of surface grime, and then they were mended. There were a few small tears that were mended with Japanese rice paper, which is a technique that a conservator will use. And then they were deacidified, and so that is a treatment to help control and slow down the acidity, the acid in the paper, in order to, again, slow down the aging process, because we want these letters to last and be around with us for a good long time. And then finally, the letters were encapsulated, so placed in a mylar sleeve. Mylar is a product that your paper documents can go into because it is inert, basically, and it's not going to cause a conflict with the other treatments that had been done on the paper, on the letters themselves. And then encapsulation also helps you from our hands from touching the documents. And so with the grant money that was provided through Civil War Digital Digest Coffee Grinders, we were really grateful to be able to have this type of work done on, as Doug said, 3 very important documents in the Civil War Museum's collection.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, Gina, what you mentioned that they did, because I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there, whether they be museums or private collectors, who may have similar documents in their own collections, and they're wondering, how can I properly care for them? What steps can I take to make sure that these things live on for generations to come, whether they're in a public or a private collection? And so I think it's really neat to know, to get the details from you as to know what the paper conservator exactly did, and then how that's going to help these letters live on for future generations to study and learn from. Yeah. Well, once again, we just wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, certainly from the staff and volunteers at the Civil War Museum here in Kenosha, Wisconsin. We hope you get the opportunity to visit us again in the new year. We've got a lot of great programs, a lot of great new exhibits coming up. So Andy, Will, thanks so much for your continued support through you and your organization. I know we'll be doing some future digital work together. You'll be partnering with the museum on more things. Gene and I look forward to working with you in the near future. So take care, everybody. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
All right. Well, gang, fellas, go ahead and open your mics back up as a reminder. And, it's a bit of a treat. Gina's a lot of fun. I never expected to see her on camera. That was a little bit of a surprise to me. So very thankful for that. As we close out that segment, let me share a couple of pictures they sent with you. This is the conserved letters that the coffee grinders have been able to help with and to keep these memories and this historic memory safe for future generations. So...
Well, that's one thing I love about the coffee grinders is that, this was an immediate thing too. I remember when the vote came up, and this was a project that was in the queue, ready for them. This wasn't something abstract that this was going towards. Not that there's anything wrong with a land purchase or anything like this, but this was a set of artifacts that was in need of preservation. They got the money, and that was enough to begin the project right away. I remember, hearing from Doug that, they immediately started on it after that. And it's great to see that kind of impact that we as an organization can help facilitate with, as you said, we're up to 180 coffee grinders. We're striving for more. We're committed to part of that being a preservation effort. And I think for everyone that's out there that's watching or goes back and watches this, not live, that is a coffee grinder, this is what your money can do. And this is not something that happens way down the road or you're working towards it or piece of the puzzle. These letters were preserved because of us. And that's, I think that's a great testament to the community that we have that are patrons of our show.
Yep, it's an immediate impact, and I'm thrilled. Eric J. Rat just said, Happy Holidays, everyone. So someone else checking in. John, I'm going to share a different photo with us now, and that is a photo of you and me a couple of years ago when we did the Christmas Carol. And folks, you're seeing an actual candlelit Christmas tree. If you want to find out a little bit about doing that, our Christmas decorations from Volume 2 has some really helpful advice, because this is incredibly beautiful and really dangerous if you do it wrong. So please pay attention and be careful if you ever decide to do it. We've got some best practices, but we got to do it here. It's the last time I did it. John, you're holding a book there. Would you tell us what in the picture, and you're now holding it here. What is that book?
So I've always loved I always want to call it the Christmas Carol, A Christmas Carol. I've always loved the story, and it's been in so many movies and other types of adaptations, pretty much as long as film or television has been around. And we have even, as recently as I think last year, there was a really dark version with Guy Pearce as Ebenezer Scrooge, and it kind of goes into it's kind of surreal and like I said, very dark. But
John, can I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
What is your favorite film adaptation of A Christmas Carol?
Oh man, so I guess I'm partial to the one with George C. Scott as Ebenezer Scrooge, because that was maybe the first version that I had seen, and so that one kind of horrified me in a way that like stuck with me, and then it's kind of everything else is measured by that. So as far as the film version, I'd have to say that one.
To toss up. Go ahead, Andy.
I was going to say, what's interesting for me is the one I've always loved is the Michael Caine version, which is the Muppets Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
And it has a degree of tongue-in-cheek, and obviously, but at the same time, I love his portrayal in it. And having read the novella as well, like I've actually found that Caine's version, I thought, maybe came closest to how I really pictured Ebenezer Scrooge from reading it.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting juxtaposition with having, Godzo as your narrator. So...
No, that one, and it's funny you bring that one up because I was just looking on Facebook earlier today, and some people had said how much they loved the costuming in that, and that the lamplighter coats were correct for the Rizzo and Gonzo and stuff like that, and that a Muppets movie didn't deserve to have such like authentic costuming and stuff like that, and there's a lot of merits that one has. It's definitely a wonderful one. I just came to film portrayals through that George C. Scott one first, and for some reason I just always liked that one. But they're both great, and
I guess our buddy Jim Scheidel just chimed in the chat, voting for the Patrick Stewart edition.
Everyone will have their favorite one, which is maybe another thing of what's so great about the story is that it transcends time, and I hope to read a section that maybe captures that most important essence of what Christmas is about. But to get back to the actual artifact, well, it's not an artifact, but my philosophy of getting to the the most authentic or the most original or whatever led me to one time foolishly search on eBay for what first edition would cost, and I had no idea like rare books was a collectible field or whatever, and something thousands and thousands of dollars. Like, okay, that's not going to be acquirable, but they have these facsimile editions. So this is what the original edition would have looked like from 1843. It's got gilding around the edges of the pages. It's got, I'll try to hold it closer, a gilt embossed stamp on the front. Sorry, I moved it too quickly. There's some edging too. It's a red fabric binding. I got a ribbon bookmark there, but there's some stuff on the spine, some more stuff around the back, and then I think Will said he's got some still photos he can show of the original John Leach engravings, but he had it with green end papers, which is really cool, festive, back and front. And then the most of the engravings in the book are black and white woodcuts, but he paid to have 4, which I don't even know how much it would have cost him, but the book was produced at an enormous expense, but he ended up making a killing off of it. The frontispiece is reproduced here in color, and there were 4 full color illustrations in the original book. So like I said, that was really expensive back then. So that was all reproduced in this facsimile, as is there's some other Dickens artifacts that are reproduced in here, like his manuscript when he wrote the first edition in his own pen. That's reproduced there too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So you can pick these up on, I think I got this on eBay, and these are Arcturus.
Yep.
There's an ISBN in there. Maybe we can share that or post it later or something.
The other thing, we did an abridgment of this because it's ridiculously long. John read the whole thing and we did an abridgment. In the show notes on that on YouTube, we've got a link there that you can get to, I think, Amazon or eBay that'll have copies you can purchase. So we've got that available to folks. So, well, John, as we're heading in for this evening, why don't you take us out for the evening? Why don't you read us a segment? You read the whole thing one day for us, and that took us the better portion of 7 hours, and you were getting sick. Let's do a a short version to finish tonight. Where are you going to take the story for us?
Well, I guess I should ask first how much time you were hoping to
give us between 5 and 10 minutes of the original story.
Okay, then I will. I'll start kind of at the climactic moment, which is when he's with the ghost of Christmas yet to come, and then go into the final moment where he wakes back up and realizes that his time yet to come is his with which to make it better for the world around him. A churchyard. Here, then, the wretched man whose game he had now to learn lay underneath the ground. It was a worthy place, walled in by houses, overrun by grass and weeds, the growth of vegetation's death, not life, choked up with too much burying, fat with repleted appetite, a worthy place. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. He advanced towards it, trembling. The phantom was exactly as it had been, but he dreaded that he now saw new meaning in its solemn shape. "Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point," said Scrooge, "answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they shadows of the things that may be only?" Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood. "Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends, to which, if persevered in, they must lead," said Scrooge. "But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me." The spirit was immovable as ever. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge. "Am I the man who lay upon the bed?" he cried upon his knees. The finger pointed from the grave to him and back again. "No, spirit. Oh, no, no." The finger still was there. "Spirit," he cried, tight clutching at its robe, "hear me. I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been but for this intercourse. Why show me this if I am past all hope?" For the first time the hand appeared to shake. "Good spirit," he pursued, as down upon the ground he fell before it, "your nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I yet may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life." The kind hand trembled. "I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone." In his agony he caught the spectral hand. It sought to free itself, but he was strong in his entreaty and detained it. The spirit, stronger yet, repulsed him. Holding up his hands in one last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own, the room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own to make amends in. "I will live in the past, the present, and the future," Scrooge repeated as he scrambled out of bed. "The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob, on my knees." He was so fluttered and so glowing with his good intentions that his broken voice would scarcely answer to his call. He had been sobbing violently in his conflict with the spirit, and his face was wet with tears. "They are not torn down," cried Scrooge, folding one of his bed curtains in his arms. "They are not torn down, rings and all. They are here. I am here. The shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be. I know they will be." His hands were busy with his garments all this time, turning them inside out, putting them on upside down, tearing them, mislaying them, making them parties to every kind of extravagance. I don't know what to do, cries Scrooge, laughing and crying in the same breath, and making a perfect Laocoon of himself with his stockings. I am as light as a feather. I am as happy as an angel. I am as merry as a schoolboy. I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hello here. Whoop, hello.
And an excited Ebenezer Scrooge.
You know, the thing I love about that passage, John, is that he never actually gets an answer if he can change his fate. It's an act of faith on his part. The ending of the movie, of the novella, is famous, right? He goes and changes his ways, but he never actually gets an answer from the spirit of if he can change his fate. All he does is take the leap that he can be the better person and hope it changes it.
Right, that's a really good insight, and one I hadn't exactly thought about, but if you look at any kind of absolution that is found at the end, and maybe a message we can take away from it is, what do we do for the community around us? Because the ending is more seen through the eyes of his neighbors and Bob Cratchit and Tiny Tim. He made their lives better. Did he end up going to the hot place, to use an old expression at the end? Like you said, he took a leap of faith, and who knows what ended up happening to him, but he certainly made the daily life better for the people that he came into contact with, and maybe that's the meaning of Christmas, or just a good way to take life and look at it.
And I think it's a good way to leave the evening. John, we'll say thanks to you very much and let you back to your lady. We really appreciate the time hanging out and waiting and being willing to read and share some stories here. Thanks so much, mate.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Christmas, John.
So, gang, well, it's down to just me and Andy as we wrap out. Still have 16 of you watching, have had a whole bunch of people checking. People are starting to hit the chat lines, wishing everyone happy Christmas, happy holidays, restful, Merry Christmas. It's a great community, and thank you guys all for being part of it. Andy?
Folks, I just want to say Merry Christmas to all of you. This is, we said it already, this is a community. We don't do this for our own self-aggrandizement. We do this because we enjoy telling the stories of the Civil War, telling the stories of the people who came before us, trying to keep alive little bits of their stories, whether it's their skills, whether it's their history. And we hope that you'll follow us for another year on this. We got some great things coming up. We've done a lot this year. We've introduced biographies this year. We've done, Patrick Claiborne and Israel Richardson. We've started the Arms and Uniform series, and look for John when we do our next one. We have a filming day tomorrow, and we're going to be finishing up our next episode on that. So in showtime is in 11 hours here.
Yep, and we have a new guest to the digest who is another national park ranger and another author who's going to be with us tomorrow. We'll look forward to introducing you to him in a few weeks down the road. We'll shoot with him tomorrow.
Yeah, and this is, so this show is evolving, it's changing, it's, we always want to make sure to be true to the people who've been with us along the way, and we want to make sure that we can continue to tell good stories, we can continue to engage people, we can continue to be diverse, and remember that the war isn't just about the soldiers, it isn't just about white guys, it isn't just about men, it's about the people who are at home. It's about the people on both sides. It's easy for Will and I to fall in the trap of we're two guys from Michigan to forget about the guys down south. And we want to make sure, believe me, I have color-coded charts and everything to make sure that we try to get Confederate stories in there. We want to make sure that this is a story of this tumultuous part in America's past. And in so many ways, it shapes who we are today and where we came from since then, that it's great to get to articulate it. It's great to have this moment at the end of the year to look back at what we've done and to kind of take a deep breath before we plunge into the next year of production.
Yep. So fantastic. Well, with that, we're going to call production for 2021 finished. We'll start production on 2022 tomorrow, and then we're shutting things down for the holiday to be with the family. So, folks, wish you all happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next year. For Civil War Digital Digest, Will and Andy signing off. Good night.
Merry Christmas.